nervous because I'm here now.
Hey guys, welcome into 410 Sports Talk. James Haskell here with my co-host Glenn Martin, and the guy below us right now on the screen, Tony Thornton, our good buddy. Tony, we're excited for you to come on. If you guys don't know, first and foremost, before all the other cool things that Tony does, he's a huge Ravens fan.
That's right.
This guy is a Ravens fan amongst Ravens fans. But we're gonna get into what's going on right now with the Ravens, what projections you have into the future, and some of your thoughts and opinions based on some of the swirling news around the Ravens. So,
Sure.
Glenn, I'll let you kick it off here and get started.
All right. Well, thanks again for coming on with us, Tony. Recent news, it was quite surprising, was the recent releasing of defensive tackle Daylon Mack, considering he was a fifth-round pick in 2019. So, I got to know, with Eric DeCosta making the final decisions now, do you think that should put other recent draft picks on notice that maybe haven't quite performed up to their where they were picked? Or it just doesn't seem like the young draft picks have the security they used to have with Ozzie making the final decisions.
Yeah, it seems to be true, and certainly with some of the additions in free agency this year, bringing in someone like a Derek Wolfe, of course, and we know about Calais. And I think that makes some of the draft picks that really didn't work out over the course of the last couple of years maybe more expendable. Someone like a Jalen Ferguson, for example, could be someone that really has to step up this year. And, for him to stick around being a high draft pick that he is. But, yeah, I certainly – it was a little bit of a surprise with Daylon Mack, but I think this is a different kind of year with COVID. They really want to make sure they have the right core in place because we're jumping right into the regular season. We're not – there's no way to kind of see these guys play against other competition. So they have to make assessments a little bit differently now than they have been in the past. So it was a little surprising with the Daylon Mack move, but certainly I can see now with some of the pieces that they've gotten that he could be he was as expendable as he was. But, yeah, it was a little bit of a surprise.
So speaking of having a solid core in place, I think it was really interesting, the lead in there, because we have the potential core four as far as the running back room is concerned. But Eric DeCosta, of course, made a lot of comments or made a lot of headlines when he mentioned that we could have four running backs. Do you think he was coach talking there, or do you think there's a real chance that we could keep all four and sacrifice elsewhere? And then if so, realistically, how do you see the carries being divvied up with those four guys?
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting phenomenon this year because you're looking at a team that was that led the league in rushing last year, and certainly adding a J.K. Dobbins, it was a steal in my opinion, getting this guy. And now you have a stable of four solid running backs. We know what Gus can do. We know some of the potential that's out there. We know what Mark can do as well. I really see them keeping, in terms of this stable of running backs, I see it pretty much intact. They're going to keep four backs. Of course, Ricard's going to be the fullback. I think they want to continue to emphasize that running attack. And I don't see them letting any, obviously those guys are premium guys, and J.K. Dobbins, high draft pick, certainly. But I like the stable of four. It's going to be interesting because I did hear also that they're going to try to do two running backs at one time. Greg Roman is going to try his magic, I guess, because you really have to switch it up from last year. You can't go in with the same scheme because other teams now have had a full year film to watch and kind of you can see what Lamar can do in these schemes. So you got to do something a little bit different. So I can see keeping all four backs at this point. You may have to sacrifice. I know, recently picking up Jarrell Adams as the tight end. That's certainly going to be a nice addition to that group. But, where can they sort of lose in terms of, you may see two quarterbacks, but I don't think so because you may need three because of COVID. You may want to make sure you have that insurance. So that's an interesting phenomenon, but I think they're going to keep all four backs as far as I'm concerned.
Well, now, do you think that based on the previous conversation that we just had and some of the observations we've made since Eric has transitioned, from Ozzie's world into Eric's world and draft picks not having the same security, do you think that Justice Hill should be a little more concerned than he would be previous to this cut and some other moves he's made with, as far as Eric making moves with new draft picks?
Yeah, I think he should be concerned, and hopefully he's done his part in terms of working out during this pandemic over the offseason. But, yeah, someone like him could be expendable. going forward. But again, I think to your point with DaCosta, he's looking now at trying to win now. What players do we have in place, the core players, to win right now? And at least with this window that we have with Lamar under his rookie deal, we need to win right now. We need to win in 2020 and 21, or at least have some semblance of trying to get that chip, as I call it, over the next couple of years. Because as you all know, that salary cap may not be where it needs to be in the next couple of years. You've got to win now. So I can see players like a Justice Hill really feeling that pressure this year, being part of that stable.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you mentioned how they are certainly in win now mode, and a lot of fans think there's one name that could really help the Ravens win now, and that is Mr. Antonio Brown. And, of course, if Lamar's going to be asked the question, he has to answer, and that fuels the rumors through obviously no fault of his own.
Right.
Do you think that, with the news of him being suspended for the first 8 games of this season, do you think that these rumors have any validity to them? And are you for or against the signing of Antonio Brown?
That's a good question. It's been bouncing around my mind over the last couple of days. And, quite frankly, this is going to be an ownership decision. I think that this is going to be a Bisciotti decision if they decide on this. They, obviously adding someone as dynamic as Antonio Brown to this group certainly will, this is the answer. Even if he plays week 9 and finishes out the season, this is the chance now for the Ravens to have a dynamic player in their stable. Certainly can complement Marquise and the other. There's no question that Antonio Brown is a positive for this organization. Where you do find the negative is certainly his off-field situations. And, I think Antonio Brown put pressure on the league about a couple of weeks ago saying, look, I'm going to retire unless I get some answers about this whole suspension. And maybe the NFL just threw it out there just to throw it out there for the 8 games. Certainly they say that there's still some investigation ongoing. But can this make a difference for this team? Yes. I don't see Steve Bisciotti pulling the trigger on this type of individual since the Ray Rice situation. I don't see it. I'm really torn, to be quite honest with you. This is probably one of the things that I've been torn about and have talked about. His cousins on the team. Lamar supports him 100%, but we've seen what happens when quarterbacks ask for things like the Browns. Baker saying, "I want this head coach." We've seen those kind of things sort of fall apart. So I'll be honest with you. I haven't made a decision. I'm on the fence. I think he can help, but is he the right fit for this organization right now? He will be a distraction, that's for sure.
Oh my gosh, Glenn and I have gone back and forth about this.
Many videos.
Yeah, because you're right. I feel like I come to a conclusion, and then somebody makes a good point, and I'm like, man, it really makes me think about it again. And then you start thinking of Lamar in the pistol. You got Dobbins behind him, and you got Marquise on one side, and you got Antonio Brown.
And then Mark Andrews going up the seam.
And Mark Ingram, I'm seeing, Willie Snead in the slot to kind of, take away that safety help. I mean, there's so much you can do with Antonio Brown in this offense. But is he worth the distraction? Because certainly he's going to be the guy that they're going to talk to in the locker room. That's going to be that. But we've seen this sort of work, with the Bengals. Certainly with the suspension of the running back, and I need to think of his name for a second. I just lost it.
Mixon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen where he stepped in and made a bit of a difference for them. But is this Antonio Brown's a whole different animal? He's top of the heap. So I'm torn. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, because here's what I worry about, Tony, is he wasn't always happy when he was getting 150 targets. In our offense, Mark Andrews led the team with 98 targets.
Right.
I just don't know how he would be happy, even if we were winning with, 70 targets, if that, in a season?
Yeah, but I think that with the organization, I think, according to Lamar, they seem that they're able to really have a good cohesive – they would be able to be cohesive with him. Will he be happy? I'm so torn, guys.
I know, right? It's so tough.
I think he can step in this organization, and I think that the organization is strong enough where they can take him in, and he won't be a distraction. But do you trust him? I think it's a trust issue. Do you trust him to stay in the bubble? Do you trust him to to not get
sound
upset,
off.
not kick the Gatorade can over, to not do those kind of things on the sidelines that can make him a distraction. And do you take that risk? Because week 9, if he steps on that field 100%, he's going to make a huge difference for this offense. And there's no way this team cannot lose a game. And I say that really, kind of loosely, but he is a difference maker, no question, with Lamar, with Dobbins, with Ingram, with the defense being top 5. It's I can only imagine what this would be, but he's a distraction. No question.
And it's interesting. This is the last comment I'll make about Antonio Brown here, but it's interesting because if you think of some of the guys that we've brought in. Now, I want to make this clear before I mention these names. No comparison as far as I'm not comparing their character, who they are as people. But we brought in some guys that are considered head cases on the field, right? Which is one thing, but haven't had issues off the field. Like Marcus Peters has been traded twice. Right, people
as talented as he is,
right. People said he was a head case on the field, but nothing off the field. Same thing, even to a lesser degree. Steve Smith in his younger days, and Steve Smith even now is still as feisty as they come.
He's ready to punch Michael Irvin any day on that set.
Right, exactly.
So, but those are all on-field things,
right?
And that's like you're saying. That's the distinction between AB because you don't know what he's going to do leaving the
it's more of a trust factor. You can trust Steve Smith, and you can trust those guys to really do what they need to do on the field. And I think you can do the same with Antonio. No one works harder than Antonio Brown. But what does he do when he is done with football, when he leaves the facility, if he does, whatever kind of situation that they have for him? It's just going to be challenging. If you bring him in, I wouldn't be upset. If you don't bring him in, I wouldn't be upset either.
Fair enough.
It wouldn't bother me either way.
Well, you brought up Lamar, and I want to talk about him really quick. Of course, he went from being outside of the NFL's top 100 to being the MVP and being number 1 on the top 100 in 1 year. What do you think fans should expect from Lamar going into this season with expectations being much higher than last year?
Well, I think the expectations are much higher. I think they can expect really, to continue to see him becoming more of he's a mature player, but even develop his game even more with the passing attack, passing out, on the out routes. He can do the straight seam routes, and we've seen him throw the ball deep. But can he thread the needle on the outside? I think he's worked on that in the offseason, according to what he said. I think you're going to see the yardage or the rushing yards drop just a bit. He's not going to have 1,200 yards. We have too much in terms of in the backfield for him. But I think what you'll find is that this mentality is going to continue. I think the expectation should be high, and I think that we shouldn't rest with Lamar until Lamar gets us to the playoff win, and then the next step after that. And I think that's where we need to hold him to a high expectation to say, look, Lamar, now take us to that next level. Because right now, that's the only knock about this guy. I mean, to be number 1 by his peers, to be MVP unanimously. There's nothing else, nothing more he can do except win a playoff game, win a chip. And that's where he needs to be. And he's already said, he says, listen, you can talk about the contract that Mahomes got, $500 million. I don't even want to talk about that until I win a Super Bowl. Then we can negotiate. And that's what I love about Lamar. Let's negotiate then and not beforehand. Lamar could have easily said, oh, man, that's a lot of money. I love to make that kind of money. But he says, no, I don't even deserve to even be in that category until I win a chip. So I say the expectation should be high for him, but I want to see him take that next step. And I think this is the chance he has.
Yeah, it's funny when his quote was, I'm going to have a chip until I get a chip. He's going to have that chip on his shoulder until he gets his
exactly.
chip. And, I love that about him. Well, last year we saw the Ravens, while good in the secondary, really struggled to stop the run in some big games. And none bigger, of course, than the loss to the Tennessee Titans. Are you confident with the additions to the roster through free agency and the draft that they were enough to help shore up that run defense?
I think so. When you speak about people like Calais Campbell, who we all know is a Hall of Famer, who not only can stop the run but also can rush the quarterback, I think that's going to be a big plus. Patrick Queen, I will tell you that, everybody says he's undersized, but so was Ray Lewis when he came into the league as well. Patrick Queen is a ball hog. He is going to be around that ball every single play to find out where that running lane is. I think with that draft pick, with Calais, even with Derek Wolfe, who's a good run stopper as well, Brandon Williams is back. I mean, we keep forgetting about Brandon. Brandon doesn't get enough respect for what he does. But I think that they've addressed that enough, in my opinion, to get them where, they were gashed last year. Nick Chubb. Henry. I mean, they were gashed big time in a lot of games. And it was just one of those things where I think it was just missed assignments, with some of the new additions that they had last year. But I fully believe that with the addition they have this year, they'll address that. And I don't think it should be that much of an issue. Certainly there's some great backs in the league. You're going to allow them their 100 or 70 or 80 yards, but not to gash off 150, 175. I think those days are over, hopefully.
Yeah, seriously. And I think that Malik Harrison is going to have a lot to do with that as well.
Right.
He's going to bring the heat.
Yes.
I think Calais is going to have the most fun playing for the Ravens organization. This is his third organization now, if I'm not mistaken. I think he's going to love it here. And this is like going to Florida to retire, right? Like
any free agent that comes to Baltimore, that they'll tell you this is the place. I am so glad that I ended up here.
Yeah.
And I'm disappointed as a fan that these guys didn't start their careers here, because like Steve Smith and Calais. Calais is going to have so much fun with this defense, with the different schemes, and just with the organization itself. And he is a player's player, and he's going to be good for the community here in Baltimore. So I'm looking forward to it. But I think that they really addressed the issue of that run stopping. That was a problem last year. It was kind of, we did good in the secondary. I think people kind of dismissed that, but we were gashed in that divisional round game. We were there and we saw it.
And I hope that Michael Pierce stays healthy, but we ended up winning that one too, because if we would have signed him, he just opted out. And, we would have given the Calais money to Brant or to Michael. That would have been worse for us.
And we see the C.J. Mosley situation kind of worked in our favor, we didn't lose out at all in that. So I thought I think that the Ravens are really poised in terms of their defensive front and their linebacking crew now to really go forward.
Absolutely. Now, the other thing we want to talk to you about is the other side of the ball, but the big boys up front. I think it's going to be, for me, the most intriguing of the roster battles this year is the interior of the offensive line, those interior three. Mm-hmm. So, of course, Yonda retired and Skura's uncertain health. You have the right guard position open, center position, and everyone keeps penciling in Bozeman automatically, I feel like, at the left guard because of the COVID situation and all those things, the uncertainty. However, I think that with Bozeman's history of playing center in Alabama, they could look to put him there and then put someone else at left guard. So who do you predict will end up filling the interior O-line positions as far as those three interior positions?
Well, I still think it's Skura's to lose. Certainly he's on the PUP list now, and I think it's just because of caution, because he had a really good off season. He really worked hard to get that injury to where he needs to be. He passed his conditioning test, of course. I think he's ready to go, but they want to call, I think he's the right guy under center for Lamar. So I see him there. McCurry is the backup, certainly. And, that's going to be good. Bozeman could play center, but I really see someone like maybe a Ben Bredesen who can come in and maybe take that spot. But I do like, Bozeman is just one of those kind of guys. I know we keep harping. I think he's a utility guy that could play both guard and center if need be. But I like, Yonda's going to be missed because Yonda was able to read the defenses, move and shift everything to where it needed to be. That's going to be a huge loss for us. But I really believe that with the tackles being all pro and then really working from that point in, I think we're going to be okay. But I do like Skura at center. I would prefer him. But Curry didn't do that bad toward the end of the year when Skura was hurt. But Bozeman will probably step in and be that guy. Just based on, they want to keep that continuity based on what we have now with no preseason to work with and going right into the regular, with the Cleveland game. So it's going to be interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's going to be hard for most rookies to step up this year
really
and start. So maybe DJ Fluker. Look, they brought DJ Fluker in for a reason.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he's getting a good, healthy look at right guard, and so it may end up being just simply Fluker's in for Yonda, and the rest stays chalk.
Yeah,
but the competition, I don't know. Skura being on that PUP list might, with the limited time, may end up biting him if that forces someone else to get looks at center and they impress. Skura could end up being on the outside.
Yeah, he could be. Fluker, I think was brought in to kind of take that spot. Again, I think with what's going on now with the pandemic, it's just going to be challenging for these guys to get those looks, and they're going to have to just go with veterans at this point to start the season, and then kind of work their way from that point. So we'll see.
Well, something to keep in mind too, Bredesen, he's like a registered genius or something like that.
He's photographic memory. Yeah,
scored in the top 75 percentile in the ACT in 6th grade. I didn't do that applying for college.
Yeah, exactly.
I
know
mean,
what you mean.
I think that would be an advantage for him. I'm just going to call it here. I think that Bozeman starts the season at center. I think Fluker's at right, and I think Bredesen starts at left guard.
Wow.
Okay.
You like the Michigan kid. All right.
Yeah, I like him a
All
lot.
right. I can buy that. Well, we know the tackles are upset, so we're good to
Yeah,
go
yeah.
with an offensive line.
Absolutely.
That's no problem. Yeah.
Cool. Well, it seems like really since Jacoby Jones left, the Ravens' return game hasn't been much. I mean, at this point, it's almost like just catch the ball and I'm happy. Fair catch. And with DeAnthony Thomas opting out this season, he was our primary punt returner. I mean, who do you think's left to compete for both kick and punt return duties?
Well, I guess we have to go to our SMU friend, James Prochet will be that guy. Certainly he has the speed, and he's done that before in college. I think he could be the guy to step in. It's tough as a rookie because you know how Harbaugh is. If you make one mistake, if you drop the ball once or fumble once, you're done. I mean, he does not appreciate fumbling or any type of bobbles or anything like that. So Prochet has to come in ready. But I think it could be him. Duvernay, I don't think they would use him in that in that format. Chris Moore has done a little bit of it as well. But I would rather have Prochet, that be his primary role or function to start the season and see how he does. But again, I wish we had more looks with this guy and during camps and even during real games, if you will, with the preseason, kind of see how he handles that, because it's different from with the Ravens versus or with the pros rather versus playing for SMU. So I like Prochet at that role.
Yeah, it has gotten so bad. That every time I watch the game at Glenn's house, he has like 2 lazy boy chairs downstairs, and I stand behind them and I just catch the ball.
That's all I want you to do. That's your only function. You're not going to return. I mean, it's rare that you see big returns anyway. It's rare. You don't see them anymore with the way the rules have changed. So just catch the ball, get about 8 yards, go down, and get off the field. That's all I ask.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially with this offense.
Just catch it.
Just catch it.
That's right.
I thought that DeAnthony Thomas did okay. I really thought he did a pretty good job. He was decent. He really was.
Yeah, but I can't blame him for a business decision taking that guaranteed 150.
No, exactly. He's doing the right thing. And a lot of this has to do with their families as well. Andre Smith, same thing. So, yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah, so Glenn and I are really looking forward to seeing the guy behind me, Tavon Young, back on the field.
Yes.
So what could having a true slot corner, and in a lot of people's eyes, at least a lot of insiders that are close to the Ravens, the true best slot corner in the league, bring to this talented defense? And do you think he can make a full season?
I think he can make a full season. He's had a chance now to kind of work on it. He's under contract, big deal, and I think he can certainly be that guy. Everybody was saying, can Jimmy Smith play the slot as well? Is he getting older now? In his 11th year, I believe. Can he play the slot? Jimmy Smith can do whatever Jimmy Smith can do. That's what he does. He can play at the corner. He could play at the nickel. He could play at the wherever you want to. But Tavon Young back is a huge addition. Marcus Peters can continue to roam the field, if you will, to try to get those picks. Earl Thomas, to me, I love his aggression and his tenacity. But I think this might be. I mean, I don't want to say this, and again, I'm an Earl Thomas fan, but sometimes Earl Thomas, I think, just kind of plays on instinct. He's not the same Earl Thomas from the Legion of Boom. So I think he's slowing down just a bit. I think it's good to have him on the squad, don't get me wrong. But, I think that Chuck Clark is so underrated. I think Chuck Clark can stop the run. He can call those defensive plays in the backfield. He does a great job. But, no, I like Tavon Young to really kind of take that slot back where he deserves to be. And it just makes our defensive backfield that much stronger.
Yeah, on a side note, I feel like Earl did a little too much bulking up over the last season as he's getting older to try and prevent injury, but it made him look slower. Not that he's slow by any means, but he just looked a little clunkier to me than normal. He's flexible, nimble, and really quick. I think he was noticeably bigger this year in comparison to his days in Seattle. I think it made a difference.
Yeah, he's still one of the best safeties to ever play, in terms of that, and he's going to go down in history, and I get that, but I don't think he's the same guy. So with that being said, I do like the fact that we are adding more pieces to the secondary that kind of help that back end.
Yeah,
no question about that.
Well, on the other side of the ball, I think a lot of people were expecting the Ravens to add to that receiving core with maybe a high draft pick or maybe bringing in a veteran. And really, I mean, they didn't bring in any free agents, and yeah, they bring in some draft picks, but they were later than a lot of fans were expecting. Now, if you look at Marquise Brown's offseason, it's been a lot of excitement. I mean, he's putting out hype videos of himself, putting out workout videos, getting everyone excited. He's obviously put on some muscle. It seems like there's a lot of pressure on not just Hollywood, but also Miles Boykin as well to make that next step. What do you think fans should expect now that Marquise is healthy? He's put on some muscle mass. What should they expect out of Marquise, but also Miles Boykin going into his second year?
Miles certainly is a guy that I think has a strong potential. I think he showed some signs of greatness, or not greatness, but at least some signs, rather, that he was going to turn the corner at the beginning of the season, and then things kind of tailed off. He had a really good training camp last year, and I thought that he was going to take that next step. But I still think it's too early for him. I think that we can still see some really good things out of him. Marquise Brown certainly bulked up. We've got to find that number one receiver. And I think, obviously Marquise Brown is that guy, Hollywood. But Miles Boykin can actually step up and take that spot if he wants it. He just has to continue to work hard at it. Willie Snead is just as solid as he can be as a veteran. Duvernay, to me, is Steve Smith Jr. I think once people get to see this guy, and I saw him in college, this guy, not only does he break tackles, he runs fantastic routes, slant routes, and he takes off. And I think people are going to really like him. I like the receiving core. I think that Miles has to make that next step, though, in order to make it at least a solid receiver core. We're never going to lead the league, and our receivers are always going to be sort of, we don't have the big time names. Antonio Brown could be that big time name by week 9, but we don't have those big names right now. So I think we have to rely on solid guys that can run routes and get open. Marquise Brown can take that next step, but I think Miles is poised and ready to go now. This is another guy that he needs to step up over the next year or two for him to stay as a Raven. One of those kind of things where DeCosta now is looking at that. So,
no, I think that's a really good point, because I feel like this offseason, biggest jump is from year 1 to year 2. I think a big reason for that is because I feel like their last year in college, a lot of it all muddles into one long season, right? Like, because you do that, and then you have all your prep for the draft, and then going through the draft process, getting right into camp early, and then you go through a 16-game season where you're being, you're competing with grown men who normally you were competing with boys, essentially, at that point.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah,
there's a significant jump, and so hopefully Miles, I'm interested to see what he looks like body-wise and mental.
He looked like a grown man last year when he came in. He didn't look like a rookie. That's
no,
for sure. When I saw him at training camp. Whew.
That Seattle game, the early part, and some early games, and some games, he was looking really good. So he has a chance to really be that next guy. Marquise Brown, I don't know what he's been eating or what he's been – he looks totally different. When he walked into camp the other day and they had the video, he looked like a different person. It wasn't the same short guy that we were used to seeing running around the field. And
hopefully he didn't lose any speed.
Hopefully he has that speed. Just maintain that speed.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm not too worried about that. So, Tony, a lot has been going on in the AFC North. Okay, Big Ben is coming back. Everybody up north is all excited for no reason, in my opinion. The Bengals, of course, got Burrow. They got AJ Green, DJ Reader, and others. The Browns, to a shock,
new coaches.
That's right. New coaches. I changed my draws. They got new coaches, about the same schedule. So based on those events, who do you think is the Ravens' stiffest competition in the North, in the AFC North?
There's no doubt it's going to be the Steelers. Look, Big Ben coming back. I don't think he's the same as Thornton arm still was the injury. And, I think he's getting older, but he's still Ben, and he's still a guy that is a veteran, a quarterback that knows how to take care of himself. But that defense for the Steelers, there's no question that's one of the top 5 units in the league. There's no doubt about that in my mind. So I see them as being the competition for us, with Minka and TJ Watt and those guys. They're very impressive on defense. They really are. So they can give us sort of a run in terms of that. So that would be the biggest competition. The Cleveland Browns, certainly they have a lot of talent, but again, another first-year head coach. I'm not sold on Cleveland until Cleveland does something. They have to show me what they can do. They have to prove to me that they can win 9-10 games and make the playoffs with that crew that they have constructed. It still may take another year or two for them to get there, They have a really good GM now. The organization is kind of changing, but they still have a first-year head coach. So it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of plays out. And the Bengals are certainly, they have some good young talent, but they're not going to be in any thought. I mean, Burrow is going to be good at some point, but I still want to wait and see with him as well.
Yeah, certainly a tough year to be a rookie quarterback coming into the NFL.
Yeah, yes.
But, you mentioned, the biggest competition being the Steelers, and I think you're right. And that's in the North. But do you look at really this being ultimately for the AFC more of a two-horse race when you're talking about the AFC overall being the Ravens and the Chiefs, or do you think there's a third team that could kind of fight their way into that conversation?
No, I think it's the Ravens and the Chiefs. In fact, I feel the Chiefs are kind of feeling themselves a bit, and I think they understand that the team that they know they need to continue to try to strive for, or at least put themselves – well, listen, they've already won their chip, so they're very happy. But they understand that the Ravens are breathing down their neck, and there's been a lot of comparisons with Mahomes and Lamar. And I think they're getting tired of it, and I think we're getting tired of it. I think it's time for us now to week 3 to kind of put our stamp on this. But I think teams like, for example, Houston, teams like the Indianapolis Colts out of the South. I like the Buffalo Bills. People laugh when I talk about the Buffalo Bills, but I like their structure. I like what they have on offense. Josh is a good quarterback. He really, truly is. I know people are not sold on him, but I like him. When they played us last year, it was a good, tough-fought game. Their defense is still good. So I think Buffalo, Houston, the Colts could really are that tier right behind the Chiefs and the Ravens. But to me, I was telling somebody the other day, I think the Chiefs are now our new rival. If you look at the games head-to-head, I know recently it hasn't been that way, but if you look at over the years, even with Joe when he was here, we had some really good games against the Chiefs, and we've beaten them a few times. This was before Patrick Mahomes, of course.
Yep.
But certainly I think the Chiefs are now our primary focus or rival at this point. The Steelers are the Steelers, but to me it's the Chiefs. If the Ravens want to get to that successful level of winning multiple championships, because I think that the Chiefs are poised to win multiple championships. Not like what we heard Tyreek Hill say, which, this is not basketball, Tyreek. You still have to play. It's one game and you're done. It's not like a, best of 7. He thinks they're going to win 6 chips, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, good luck catching Michael on that one.
Exactly.
But last one for you, Tony. With you being a season ticket holder and obviously a huge fan, the Ravens, I believe right now, are still under the assumption that they're going to have 14,000 fans in the stadium, last I heard. How do you think this will work out? How do they determine which 14,000 get access to these tickets? Do you know any information we might not have?
No, the only thing that I do know is that they've given every season ticket holder the opportunity to defer. Because everybody's now paid up, of course, for this year. So they've allowed the season ticket holders to defer the funds for this year toward next year, which is what we're doing. We're not going to be attending any games. The reason why it's the 14,000 is that because the state of Maryland, with some of the codes, they said that that's what they can, the state of Maryland could allow that based on the current structure. But because of the pandemic and because of what we're seeing now, with baseball and with basketball, how things are sort of working out without fans. It really, I mean, certainly the players are not, the players in baseball, there's some issues with the Marlins and the Cardinals, but in terms of not having fans, I think it's kind of worked out. I think that and I don't think that the fans will really want to put themselves in position to expose. Like, how would they choose? Like, I want to go to the Chiefs game, and they tell me, no, you can't go to the Chiefs game, but you can go to the Browns game, or you can go to the Bengals game. No, I want to go to the Chiefs game. So it's going to be that will be a challenge within itself. I know that if they do decide to have single ticket sales, what they're going to do is just go to the people that have the season tickets first and offer them the tickets. From the folks that I've spoken with, from suite holders to no one wants to go. They would rather sit at home and watch it on, just for this year. Sit it out, right. And then next year you're good to go.
Wow. Well, hopefully everything works out for the fans, for the teams, for everybody involved, and we get through this thing one day at a time. Tony, we appreciate you coming on and always love the enthusiasm. Why don't you let people know where they can catch you?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I do. I'm a news traffic anchor for some of the local stations here, Magic 95.9, 92Q, and also WHUR in D.C., I do local news and traffic and a little bit of sports as well. So you can catch me on those stations anytime.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, man. We'll be sure to talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Tony.